Hello everyone, welcome to Titan Academy. In this video we will cover the Salesforce integration get in Titan Forms. What we will do in this video, we will demonstrate the ways that the Titan get runs, the get from Salesforce, and we'll explain the differences and give a few scenarios. Alright, so let's dive right in. We have a fresh new form and let's add a field. Let's say we want to map, we want to get some information from the account object in Salesforce. And you can get information from any object in Salesforce, custom or standard. We'll do an example with the account. Let's say we want to bring in the account name and say we want to bring in, let's do the email. I have a custom field, an email on the account. Let's just stick to these two right now. Let's name this account name. And let's create our get. All right, so usually you want to get by a certain parameter. You want to say, get me an account that's equal to an account ID or something of that sort. So let's do this scenario and we'll take it from there. All right, so we'll add a hidden here. And notice the hidden ID is FLD37. We'll need to pass it in the URL parameters. And obviously you can change this in the URL params as well. All right, so we'll call this account ID. That's our hidden. Let's head over to our Salesforce integration, set get, add an object. Here we will select our account object and we'll say get an account ID. Notice these guys over here execute on form load using custom action button. And right now we're not selecting anything. That means that it's an auto trigger, and we'll explain about every single one of these because this is the main thing to understand when you use a get, is when your get actually runs. All right, so we'll set our condition here, and what we will say here that our Salesforce field account ID equals to our hidden on the form ACC ID, account ID as well. We'll hit apply. Let's set our mapping. And we have a bunch of options here. If multiple matches, take ID from, first, last, skip all, and every single one of these options has a question mark. Once you click this question mark, it will take you to a quick demonstration of how you can use these. And you have a short video as well, so it's very, very easy to learn. Just check out the question marks and you're good to go. Let's set our mapping. So here I will tell Form Titan when the data comes back to Salesforce, I want you to map the account name, that's the form field, account name field. I want you to map it to my account. Let's just search name to my account name in Salesforce. And the email that I have on the form, I want you to map it to my email in Salesforce. We'll hit apply and finish. We'll save. Just going to log into my Salesforce environment and grab us an account ID. All right. Let's get an account. Let's see if it has an email. It doesn't. Let's put an email on it. So we'll say and we'll hit save. I'll grab this ID and let's publish our form. And I'll pass in the account ID. And the reason that we're seeing the hidden is because I've enabled the debug mode, show hidden fields, so we'll be able to see it and debug it and see how this runs. All right, so we'll do FLD37 equals my account ID. Now I'll run this again and I see that my get ran. So I have the account ID, I have the account name, I have the email. Why did this run and how did Titan know how to run it? For instance, if I will go back to my get and I'll edit this and I'll say using custom button and I'll hit apply and save and I'll refresh, the get didn't run. And the reason for this is whenever you don't choose anything here, so nothing is selected, by default, it runs by auto trigger. And you can see this in the legend. So auto trigger gets assigned a color, and you will have a different color for custom action and a different color for onload. What the auto trigger does, it watches the fields that you put in the condition. So if I'll head back to the condition, right now it's watching just the account ID hidden. So if you had a different field here, and you will say, let's say key in my instance, and we'll change this back to auto trigger, and I'll add the key into the condition. We'll say, and account ID, let's say account, let's say name equals my key. Now, anytime that one of these change, then what will happen is we will run your get. And right now, it's kind of problematic since what we created here is every time that one of these change, it will run our get, even though one of these can be empty. So what we want to do in this scenario, for instance, if we're running auto trigger, we want to make sure both of them are not empty. So we will say account ID is not empty and my key is not empty, then we'll run the condition. Then we will run the get. So that's the auto trigger. Very important to understand that anything in your condition, any field that's not static, any field that's on the form, we will watch it. And once this field changes, we will automatically run your get. Okay, let's move on to custom action. So we've seen what happened once we selected the custom action. Let's set our condition again. We'll say count ID equals to my ACC ID. And what we've seen here, once I refresh the form, even though that my account ID is full, my get didn't run. The reason for this is once you select custom action, you need to, I'm in the push, you need to explicitly invoke it. And what's powerful about this is that you can have a get and you can run it whenever you want, based on conditions, based on button click, based on anything you want, and you can run it also multiple times from different windows and different conditions, and you can play with it however you like. In this scenario, for instance, we can do something like so. So I can go over here, account ID, and it will seem very similar. In this instance, we do need to use auto trigger because this has no meaning, but I'm just going to show you how this works. So we can go over here, remove the support opposite, and what I will say is, if this field is not empty, and I'll click to configure the results, and I'll head over to Salesforce action, and I'll say, please run my get. And I'll hit save, and let's refresh, and let's see what will happen now. Immediately I run my get since I've met the condition. You can do the same thing, for instance, with, let's remove this condition, and you can put, let's say, a button, and that button could be either a condition or Salesforce action. So we will select the button that will run our Salesforce action, and from this action you can run multiple gets or pushes. You can do whatever you want from here, and you can set you can have it run in the background. You can, every single thing here, as you see, has question mark. You can investigate what everything does. Really cool features here, especially run in background, custom execution order, and just discover. All right, just a few words about the custom execution order. So let's say if you had a bunch of gets here and you want them to run in a certain order, let's say you want to get data, and then you have like custom push here, and then you want to push the data, so you can order them, and then we will run the first once it finishes, and we'll run the second, third, fourth, etc. All right, let's remove the custom action. We'll hit apply, And we can say here, click to get the account. But the problematic thing is that, let's say if the account ID wasn't there, then it will fail. So what we will need to do here is set a condition button and make sure that the account ID is not empty. Next up, let's talk about the onload. So let's remove these, and let's remove these. And let's say we want to get the account ID. We want to run something on the once the form is loaded, immediately once it's loaded. Now let's try do this. I'll go over here, and instead of using custom action button, I'll say execute on form load, and I'll hit apply. And now Titan will tell me that we noticed that you're using a dynamic condition. What will happen here, basically, because it runs on form load and we have a dynamic condition, since we're looking at our condition contains an element from Titan, we're saying the element hidden account ID equals to the account ID in Salesforce. Then what will happen when you run this specific get from onload, then it's not really going to work, because we never know when the dynamic field will populate. So never use dynamic conditions with execute on form load. The way to use this correctly is, for instance, if you would have a condition, or if your hidden will have a static value and not assigned from somewhere else, then that's fine. A way to work with this thing is, let's say your query would be like, I want to return all the account names. So account names contains then something static. So you can do other, and you can say donkey. And we'll hit apply and apply and apply. Now everything is fine since our condition is static. Or if we had a hidden that we will assign a value like so, and we don't bring it from the URL, we don't map it from anywhere else, from a different condition, we don't set values, etc., etc., then it will be fine to run it. And again, only in specific scenarios, and I'll show you the main use for execute on form load. All right, so let's see this. And right now it can potentially return multiple accounts, and I just returned one since I've selected return the first one. Can select return the last one, and now if I have more than one that matches my criteria, I'll get a different account, and I didn't since I probably have just one account. Let's change this up a little bit, and what we will do, just to demonstrate, we'll put these guys into a section, and we will say auto sizing. Let's put it over here, put the account ID over here, and we'll go back to our get, and we will change this condition to say contains done, and I'll hit apply, and let's bring back all of them. And we can set the limit. Let's say we want to bring back maximum of 5. And let's refresh, and I got just one. All right, let's change this just to demonstrate. I think I have a lot more contacts than accounts, so I'll hit edit. I'll change this to contacts, and we'll just do get contacts onload, and my condition will be that the first name contains D, and let's map our account name to our contact. Let's map it to the full name, and let's map, or forgot the email, we'll map it to our email. Apply and finish. Let's change this to contact name. Let's run it. Now with a bit of luck, we have more contacts in Salesforce in my organization than accounts, and this is the case. So we can see we brought all the contacts back once the document was loaded. All right, so that's wonderful. Let's see our normal use case for execute on load. It's usually when you want to bring in pick list data. So let's get rid of all of this, and I will do a drop down and I'll map it to, I want to get whatever values I have in Salesforce for that pick list. So let's say, what do we have in the account? SLA is a pick list and upsell opportunity is a pick list, and I want to have this value dynamically assigned to my drop down. All right, so what we can do here, we can do it automatically. For instance, we'll go over here and we will say, instead of this, we will head over to our drop down and we'll say sync from Salesforce, and let's watch what Titan will do. So I'll say account and I'll say bring it from SLA, and I'll hit apply, and now watch what happened. It removed everything from the drop down, and we'll call this SLA from account pick list. And if I'll head over to my get, let's get rid of the contact, we can see that we have a get automatically created for execute on form load, because this is when we want to get it. We want to get all the values so our users can fill it up and then submit the form, and we want to get the values dynamically from Salesforce. It's a correct way to use it. And notice another thing that was checked here is the load pick list. So no conditions. And let's take a look at our mapped. We can see that we mapped the SLA from the account pick list to our SLA in Salesforce. Let's do another one just to demonstrate. And this one, let's do manually. So let's name it upsell opportunity. And we will get rid of everything here. Remove the other. We'll go back to our get. We'll edit this guy. And we'll map our fields. We'll say upsell opportunity map to upsell opportunity from Salesforce. We'll hit apply and finish. Let's refresh our form. And we saw that our get ran. And now we have our pick list dynamically assigned directly from Salesforce. The next thing I will show you is child gets. With Titan, you can nest multiple gets under one another. Let me give you a scenario here. So what we will do, we'll add a lookup element, and let's say, and this is a simple element. Let's say we want to find accounts. I'm not gonna say anything here, and you can configure condition, which accounts to return, and etc. I'm just going to return all accounts, and notice this: the account ID is the value of my lookup, and the account name is what will be displayed. We'll hit apply, and let's name this lookup account finder. And what we will put underneath is a section and let's make this a little bigger, and we'll bring all the accounts, all the contacts that are under that account, and all the cases that's under that account. So let's put this over here. We don't need this hidden anymore. And let's do it like so. I'll clone this. Let's put it over here. And for the contact, let's bring in the name of the contact. We'll do And let's say we'll put the email as well. That should be enough. Let's make this auto sizing. And let's bring some data from the account as well. So we'll say, aside from the account name, let's do the account type. So we'll put a text box and we'll bring in account type. And for the cases, that will be auto sizing as well. And let's put in a text box for the description. And let's do case number. Okay, great. Now let's head over to our get and we'll do the following. So we'll add our object. We want to start from the account. Get account via selected account and lookup element. And we're just going to let it be auto trigger, so whenever the lookup changes, it will run our get. We'll set our condition and we will say the account ID equals our account finder lookup. So remember that our account finder holds the selected contact ID, selected account ID. All right, we'll hit apply. Let's map our type. So we'll go to our account type, and what we will say, we'll map it to the account type. I think the account type in Salesforce is a drop down, but in this case, I just want to display the data. So you can display it into a label. In my instance, I just did a text box. All right, so if multiple matches take ID from, I just want the first account I find, and anyways, I should have only first account because it's matching the ID. I'll hit apply, and now I'll click add a child. And my next child will be, let's get the cases. All right, so get cases that are related to the parent account. And you would be able to run this in separate gets since we have the account ID, and it's really simple to get separately, but in some situations. And actually, I'll try and demonstrate this. So let's first get the contact, and I'll say get contacts that are related to the parent account, to the parent account, the parent get account. All right, we'll set a condition and we'll say all. All right, so I see that the account ID equals my account ID, my number one get account ID, and that got here automatically. We'll hit apply, and let's map our fields. And what we will say here is let's map our contact name. We'll map it to the full name. Let's map our email, and I think that's what we have for this, guys. And now I'll add a child to the contact, and I'll say give me all the cases, get all cases that are to the parent account. And what I can do here, and again, I'll be able to do it much simpler and level this out and do it in separate gets. I'm just trying to demonstrate the scenario, and then I might give you a real scenario for this. And I'll say all, and my condition I'll go to, instead of number one contact, I'll go to number one account and I'll say account ID equals my first get, the parent of everything, and I'll say account ID. So whatever we have in the get, after the get runs, we can select any field from there and use it in our conditions for the child. That's really great. So we have account ID equals number one account ID. That's great. And again, this could be in the same level as the contact. It doesn't have to be underneath it. Just trying to demonstrate the scenario here. This is not a good practice to do. All right, let's publish, and I'll hit view. And let's find an account. Let's say Edge, and I'll select Edge C. Once it runs, we can see we have a ton of contacts and no cases. Let's try find one with cases. All right, so I checked it out, and it looks like that we forgot to map it. So if I'll click in the way that I found it, I went to the case number, and I clicked on conditioning, and I saw the affected by is empty. For instance, if I'll go to the contact name and I'll go to the affected by, I can see that it's coming from the get. So if I'll go back to my get and let's click on the case, see our condition, count ID equals number one, count ID, wonderful. And we did not map any fields. So we'll do case number to case number, and we will say description to description. Apply and finish. Let's save it. Let's put one under the other. Let's increase our form size a little. All right, center these guys. And let's make the case section smaller so it's not going to grow to huge size. Let's remove the auto sizing, and we'll hit save. Let's head back to our form and refresh. We're going to say HC, and I'll select. Now we have a bunch of contacts, no cases, so let's find an account with cases. Okay, so United Oil and Gas Corp in my account, and my Salesforce has a bunch of cases. So let's search this guy. And I'll run it, and here is all of our cases. So probably the description is empty. This is why it's not returning. Okay, that's great. Now let me show you, for instance, what we were trying to do here. We tried to get, it's just a little bit advanced, and this is what we will finish with, just a little taste of what the get can do. Let's say we want to bring in all the accounts that has cases. So let's head over to our get, and we will sort this out. So let's remove everything here. I'll get rid of everything. And let's remove this guy as well. Let's put a section. And we'll call this section counts with cases. Let's put in a text box. We'll call this count name. And let's bring in an email as well. We'll head over to our get. And let's get rid of everything. And what we will say is get cases, get all cases with account ID. In my condition, I'll say the following. I'll say account ID on the case is not empty. And I'm not going to map everything. I'm just going to tell it to return everything. Let's do limit by 60. And this can run on form load. And this is fine since my condition is actually checking something on Salesforce. So that's perfectly fine. Next thing, I'll add a child and I'll say get me accounts. Get accounts that are in the cases above. Head over to my condition. I'll say get me all the accounts, limit by 50, and my condition will be that the account ID is in number one case account ID. So what will happen now, it will call all the cases that has account IDs, will return the first get, will collect all these account IDs for you, and now in our account query we can say give me all the accounts that the account ID is in the account ID of the cases that we have. We'll hit apply, and let's map our fields to the section. We'll say account name to the name from Salesforce, and I think we put an email over there to the email from Salesforce as well. Let's hit apply and finish. Let's make this auto sizing, put it over here. We'll hit save. Let's put the repeat margin to 10 pixels. And let's give this show item number and make this a little bigger. All right, and we're ready to go. Let's save it and head back over here and refresh. Now I'll see my first get run and my second get ran, and now I have all the accounts that for certain has a case. So if I'll go to Salesforce and I'll search Gene Point, I know for certain it has a case. So I'll go to the Gene Point account, to the related, and I can see that I have cases under it. All right, so this is a nice example for the child get. Let's do something silly just so I'll show you how you can see the integration looks. So let's say, let's move the account out, and I'll go over here and I'll say execute on form load, and I'll say bring me the first one, and my condition will be the account ID equals other, and I'll say something that's not an account ID. So this obviously when it goes to Salesforce it will fail. So I'm not even mapping anything here. Nothing is mapped. I just want to show you how this looks like. So I'll refresh this and I'll see my get run. And let's say if I had mapping over here, so let's put just an email to demonstrate that nothing is being returned. And let's save this and I'll run this again, and I see that nothing happened. So your best bet whenever your gets are not working, the first thing you should check, you should click the integration logs, and then if you have errors, for instance if you don't have permissions to get to a field, or if you've done something silly by mistake, then it will give you an exact error coming back from Salesforce. So in our instance it tells you the get that ran, and it tells you invalid query filter email C from account where ID equals blah blah blah. It tells you invalid ID, which is obviously invalid Salesforce ID. And this is how it's done.